Hello, Kathy from Hack Tutoring here with a TEAS information session. Just a quick overview of what to expect from the TEAS. This is part one of a two-part video series, and we are here to let you know what to expect from the TEAS. Knowledge is power, so going into the test knowing exactly what to expect will be very helpful. TEAS stands for the Test of Essential Academic Skills. It's governed through the ATI Nursing Education Association, and it contains 4 sections with 170 questions total. The allowed time allowance is 209 minutes, which is about 3.4 hours. And it is known to be a good predictor of success in a clinical program. I do want to note here the 170 questions. Sometimes students do come to us and say afterwards, I think I had more questions than that. Any standardized test usually has sort of sample questions that the association is sort of trying out on students. You won't know which of those questions are those, but there might be a few extra questions. So just answer them all to the best of your ability. The 4 sections of the TEAS are in this order: reading, math, science, and English. So let's dive into what to expect from each of those sections. The reading section is 39 scored questions, 26% of the test questions, and the time allowance for that section is 55 minutes. The subcategories within there are key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. I do want to note here that the time allowances here indicate how much time you have. Most students don't indicate that they run out of time very frequently, but we do encourage you to take your time as you take the TEAS. Our proctors have indicated that students who seem to rush through and are the first ones to leave the room and finish up their test don't always have the best scores. So keep that in mind to pace yourself, take the time that's allowed to you. I will also note here that you do have the ability as you're answering questions, and we recommend you answer each the first time through to the best of your ability, but you have the ability to flag a question that maybe you want to return to that might be confusing to you. So that question is flagged, and then, for example, for the reading section, when you get to that end of that section, you will be prompted, do you want to continue and go on to the next section, or do you want to return and look at your flagged questions? And you have that option. That's up to you based on how you're feeling, the time. If you flagged a question, it might not be a bad idea to go back and return to it. Sometimes in different sections, other questions that we've answered can trigger our memories to remember something or maybe clarify other answers that could have been confusing. So please keep that in mind. Moving on to the math section, that is 34 scored questions, 23% of the total test questions, and a time allowance of 57 minutes. The focus here is on numbers and algebra and measurement and data. A lot of students get nervous about the math section. We highly recommend for all of the sections to do practice questions. Find practice exams and practice questions. There's a variety of ways that you can do that, and I'll talk about that in part 2 of this video series. But practice questions will be very helpful in this area to make sure that you're up to date on your math concepts. You will have access to a calculator that's embedded within the test for this section and all of the sections if needed anywhere else. And you will also have a piece of scratch paper and be able to use a pen or pencil during the test. The scratch paper will get turned in at the end of the test, but keep in mind that you do have the ability to do anything by hand if you want to for the math section. Next, we recommend that you take your optional break at this time. You finished the first 2 sections, you're about to move on to the final 2 sections. It seems like the optimum time if you need to get something to drink, use the restroom, even get something to eat briefly, go outside for a breath of fresh air. It's only 10 minutes, so you certainly don't want to take 20 and come back and lose time towards answering questions. But just to move away from the screen might not be a bad idea in terms of returning a little bit more refreshed. And then the final 2 sections are the science. The science is 44 scored questions, 29% of the test questions, and a time allowance of 60 minutes. The heavy focus here is on human anatomy and physiology, but there are also biology, chemistry, and scientific reasoning questions. The human anatomy and biology and physiology, hopefully you've had those classes recently or in the midst of them, and that certainly will be helpful, but practice questions will be very essential here. The final section is the English and language use, and that is 30 scored questions, 22% of the test questions, time allowance of 37 minutes. The subcategories here are conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, and using language and vocabulary to express ideas in writing. A lot of students are surprised that they don't do as well on this section, and I do feel like it's because they might rush through it, or you're just kind of done with taking the test and answering the question. So I really encourage you to finish strong and take this section and the reading seriously. I know a lot of students say to me, I've had English, I don't need to focus my study on that. I'm going to focus on math and science. But we really encourage you to look at sample questions and make sure that you're up to date on your conventions of standard English, otherwise known as grammar. So that is it for this part of the TEAS information session, part 1. Good luck to you all. Thanks for watching.